This is Water End. Lots of places round here called Water End. This is the one just outside Wheathampstead. And this is the River Lee. Now originally I was going to do a River Lee video today, but it just gets too depressing. Once you get up towards the source of the River Lee, it's just so upsetting to see what's happened to that sort of old sacred kind of site. That big old henge that got destroyed and blah blah blah. I decided against it. Now in the process of researching that video and places to stop, I discovered that Wheathampstead is a very interesting little place. Now let's take a little drive down to, well, we're going to go and see a big old dyke. No sniggering at the back. It's the original encampment of the Catuvellauni tribe. This entrenchment is part of a British city built in the 1st century BC. It was probably here that Julius Caesar, hang on, my eyes are going, defeated the British king Catuvellauni in 54 BC. Now that would have been one of the very early raids. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So here's the Devil's Dyke. Once we're finished here, we're going to go down to Nomansland, a place called Nomansland Common, where, as it's getting towards Halloween, we'll be touching on the Wicked Lady, Catherine Ferrers from Mark 8, who I've talked about before. There's also a nice little scenic route I can take. I found an unrestricted byway as a bit of a shortcut between points. This is definitely a dyke which could do with a bit of a trim around its perimeter. Now I can't make any promises because there's a lot of trees on Nomansland Common, but I'm really hoping I might be able to locate what's widely considered to be the best climbing tree in the entire world. Now obviously that could take some searching, but I think I might take advantage of the fact that just round the corner from the common there's a little pub called the Wicked Lady, and I read an account where an old landlord of theirs back in the 1970s saw her ghost on the common charging along on her horse. So I might be able to find somebody behind the bar in the pub who could tell me maybe where that tree is. We're walking along the bottom of what would have been an enormous defensive ditch back when up there was an operational encampment. A lot of people think in this area, and I think mostly because we've got the Icknield Way is such a prevalent mark on the landscape around here, and the Icknield Way is named after the Iceni tribe, Queen Boudica. It makes me wonder if a lot of people think that the tribe here were the Iceni. They weren't, they were the Catuvellauni, who were later based in St Albans. But before they moved to St Albans, this was their original site, their original defensive encampment. Now it's up there, and unfortunately the plateau at the top that would have been the absolutely enormous encampment, it's all been ploughed flat as arable. So this Devil's Dyke is really all that remains for the public to see. There is another place called the Slade or the Sleed or something over on the other side, but that's on the farmer's land, so you can't go and see that. Now back there, that plaque said that Julius Caesar defeated the Catuvellauni here in 54 BC, I think it was. Which sounds very early, doesn't it? Because the Romans didn't properly invade until AD 43. Under, I think, Claudius, actually. So this was Caesar doing one of those little sort of preliminary forays into the country. Just, you know, fighting a few tribes here and there and then going back to Rome. So the Catuvellauni were one of the very first tribes to encounter the Romans and put up any sort of defence against them, any kind of resistance. Now, obviously it didn't go very well, did it, according to that plaque? Those first early raids led by Caesar did defeat the Catuvellauni, and that's when they abandoned this site. After the Romans had retreated again and left, they abandoned this site, gathered their numbers and went and founded St Albans. At the time they called it something like Veralium or something like that. But when the Romans came en masse in AD 43, they took over St Albans, renamed it Verulamium, and made it one of their major centres in the country. If you have a look on the satellite image of the encampment up there, now it's right on the eastern border of Wheathampstead. It's very obvious on the satellite map. It's marked as the Belgic encampment or something like that. The Belgic something. Now the Catuvellauni were a Belgic tribe who came over up the Thames and the Lee and found themselves in this area where they settled. And when you have a look on the satellite image on Google Maps, where you can see it's marked as the Belgic encampment or whatever it is, it's actually about 90% the size of Wheathampstead itself. It is huge. You can see why it was the HQ of an entire tribe who dominated what's now the three counties, Hertfordshire, Bedfordshire, Buckinghamshire. What a waste of good partridges. Look, somebody's presumably shot and dumped 1, 2, 3. There's a bag full of them here, 2 of them there, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 5 braces of partridge. Seems a bit wasteful, doesn't it? The Devil's Dyke actually reminds me quite a lot of Sewell Cutting and Tottenham Woods and Sidings, just out the back there, back where I live. Although that's only, what, a couple of 100 years old. This was dug out by hand over 2,000 years ago. It's mushroom season, isn't it? The rains have come, it's autumn. There's a nice field mushroom there, look. Nice edible field mushroom. I won't take it home because it's not in the best condition. We'll just leave it to drop its spores and feed a squirrel. That one there, I think that's the brown roll rim, by the looks of it. Which I'm not going to take it home or anything because I'm not 100% sure it's a brown roll rim. But they are edible as well. Them pheasants can't have been there long because the foxes would have had them, wouldn't they? Or something else. Anyway, it's all getting a bit shallower here. I can show you the plateau at the top. I think one interesting thing I read about this encampment, this enclosure, is that nobody's ever found a main entrance. Right, so as I said, it's now all bloody bracken. It's now all been ploughed to arable land, and it continues way over the top of the hill there. And those trees and hedges you can see on the other side, that's the other dike on the other side which isn't accessible. But you can see how absolutely enormous this place was. Oh. And to replace it, they had to build something as big as St Albans. Makes me wonder about the relationship between the Iceni and the Catuvellauni. They had bordering territories, bordering kingdoms. Wonder if they traded or if they fought. I would imagine, obviously they were united against the Romans, but you know, I wonder to what degree. Something for me to find out. Right, next stop, Nomansland via Coleman Green Lane. It's a bit of a rough one. And to be honest, it's not a shortcut at all. I've had to go a mile or so out of my way. But hopefully, it'll be worth the ride. That's it, that was the tough bit, getting in. I've seen a couple of YouTube videos of motocrossers doing this track. I like to check first, wherever I can. actually looks reasonably passable, although there's one section that was muddy and wet as anything. I think we'll probably be alright with the recent weather. That'll be interesting, that log there. Whoa, there we go. Nice. I quite like this lane actually. I was at Harlington the other day and it's so narrow and overgrown, I was getting scratched up. Why, yeah, it does that no problem. I was getting quite scratched up because it hasn't been cut back, so I won't be going back to Harlington. Well, I might go and have a look and see if it's had a trim. But I'm probably a fair weather off-roader and I don't want to scratch my car up too much. Now look at this one here, that's really low. I'm gonna have to, that's gonna scratch my roof. So, I'm gonna have to go up the bank there. Yeah, I'm clear of that, good, good. Here's a big log. Yeah, so far so good. I'm really enjoying this this little lane. These tree roots keep coming across. Whee! Nice little obstacles. Oh, now, am I going to get over that? Oh, and I didn't get grounded. Let me just show you. I'm well pleased with that, look. I was a little bit concerned coming over that. My, what is it, the flop over angle or whatever they call it. I was a bit concerned I might hit the bottom of the car, but it did it no problem. Very nice. I do apologise, this is not going to become an off-roading channel. I've just got the bug a bit at the moment. Saw this lane, I couldn't resist it. Yeah, this Coleman Green Lane, I'd say it scores very highly on my distance from home to fun to be had to scratching up the car ratio. It scores pretty highly. Well, nobody behind the bar has got a clue what I'm talking about when I mention the world's greatest ever climbing tree. I think they were quite pleased when I didn't sit inside and drink my pint and went out the door. It is a lovely pint. It's Mad Squirrel Sumo. Never seen it before. It's an American IPA. Quite tasty. I wonder if my best bet for finding the climbing tree might be to interrogate the dog walkers over there. I can see it's got, as I came through here to the pub, I can see they've got a little parking area and there was quite a few people walking dogs. So they're probably my best bet, I reckon. We might get to see the tree yet. Just before I head over to the common then, nearly done, I'll quickly recap who Catherine Ferrers was, the Wicked Lady, Lady Catherine Ferrers. If you're not local, you might not know the story. You might not have seen the old 1950s film, The Wicked Lady. And you might not have seen my River Ver video, where we stopped at Mark Yates' cell, and I told the story then. But Lady Catherine Ferrers was a highway woman. As I said, she lived at Mark Yates' cell, which is on the outskirts of Dunstable on the old Roman Watling Street. And this was one of her highway womaning haunts. Now, she was a bit of a savage. There was none of this chivalric stand and deliver type stuff that you see in Dick Turpin stories. She was just brutish. Nice Alsatian there. She was just brutish. Her way of stopping a carriage wasn't to sit in the middle of the track and say stand and deliver. She would simply ride alongside and shoot the driver dead. Now, she was doing this on the common quite often, on the road which is now known as Ferrers Lane. We're just off of Ferrers Lane here on Dyke Street, or Dyke Lane. Pardon me. That was one of her haunts for robbing people. And one night she robbed the wrong carriage. She shot the driver, but the 2 passengers were armed. They shot her. Now, she did retaliate and kill both of them as well, so she shot the driver and both passengers, but it was too late. She'd already been fatally wounded. So she slumped over her horse and rode back across the fields back to Markyate Cell, where she died. And it's here that her ghost has been seen and more often heard quite frequently over the years. And it's very similar to the stories that you hear of her ghost over at Markyate Cell. You hear it's quite often the sound of galloping hooves in the night, getting closer and closer, and they rush by you when you look and there's nothing there. There's just a little Halloweeny bit. We're approaching Halloween, but I have got a good Halloween video lined up. I've spent quite a bit of time researching this one. I had to pinpoint somewhere. There's one place I know very well, 2 locations with very similar stories, very weird stories, but oddly similar in a way. The first one I know very well. The second one, it took me a little while to pinpoint on the map exactly where I was going, but I found it without a doubt. So we'll be there in a couple of weeks' time. Well, this is the southern side of Nomansland Common. As I understand it, the climbing tree is to the northern side, just over the other side of Ferrers Lane there. That's an interesting name, isn't it? Nomansland. Wheathampstead is dead obvious where that name comes from. Wheat, ham means farm or settlement, and stead means farm or settlement. So Wheathampstead very simply means an arable farm. Nomansland is also exactly what it says. It was no man's land. There was an ongoing bicker that went on for centuries between the abbots of Westminster and the abbots of St Albans over who owned this bit of land. It went on for centuries, and eventually at some point a king or a queen intervened and officially split it. I think there's actually somewhere over there on the cricket pitch, next to the cricket pitch, there's a boundary stone that marks the official marker between the two abbeys, and it's remained sitting here as a common because despite repeated attempts again over centuries to try and grow anything on it, it's really infertile. I mean, it looks very green, doesn't it? But the most recent attempt was during the Second World War. They tried to grow crops here. This used to be the bottom of a big glacial inland lake. A glacier formed and plugged the River Lee, or what became the River Lee, and it flooded all of this. It was a huge inland sea. Then of course when the glaciers melted, all the water rushed out to sea, and it took all of the decent soil with it. All that was left at the bottom was this horrible stony material, which remains here to this day, and nobody can grow a damn thing on it. Now, will we find that damn tree? I'm not 100% sure. The photos I've seen of that tree, it was in a bit of a clearing. It wasn't actually in amongst other trees. It was sitting out in the middle of a nice big grassy area. And looking on the satellite image, that's probably going to be somewhere over here. I read that it's on the north side of the road. We've just crossed over to the north side of the road. Here you go, and as we can see, this is quite an open bit, so I'm going to walk through here. I'll know it when I see it. Well, I was just told by a couple with their kids that they think it's actually up in this direction. I mean, they said to me, there's dens all sorts all over the place. It's obviously a popular area with the kids, this bit. But to be honest, this is too heavily wooded. The photos that I saw, it was definitely in a clearing. That's not it. Close but no banana. It's better than that. To be honest, there's a few I've passed which could be it, but I don't think they are. And they've all been young oaks. Well, not young. Youngish for an oak. Nearly back at the pub now. This is a lot of wandering around. All to no avail. I'm getting a bit hungry. And I need a wee. I wonder if I can get away with just picking a tree and telling them I found it. Yeah, found it! Best tree in the world! Shame that, I didn't find the tree. Like I said, there's a lot of trees here, and it's quite a big area. I might have even been wrong in what I read that told me it was on the north side. It might be over there for all I know. Anyway, that's not a problem. Wheathampstead is quite an interesting place to go, isn't it? I've got a bit of everything there. It ticked a few boxes. Bit of history, bit of green laning, bit of walking. And here's the car park. So, hopefully, I'll see you next week. Now, just in case you're feeling any way cheated by that tree, sorry about that. Here's a little bonus fact for you, which I forgot to mention. Nomansland Common was also the site of the Second Battle of St Albans during the English Civil War. And during recent excavations, they found cannonballs and 25 corpses.